What I'm about to tell you in this video might sound strange, difficult to understand, or hard to believe, but it's real, and I'll do my best to convey in words what I saw, or rather, perceived on the night I had my spiritual awakening. Some would say it was a spontaneous awakening because it's not like I was in a state of meditation or that I was someone who meditated every day to achieve a spiritual awakening. In fact, I didn't even know something called spiritual awakening existed, even though my mom is a holistic teacher. I always ran away from those topics because they sounded religious to me, and today I understand that religion has nothing to do with spirituality. But if I think about it, it wasn't that spontaneous in the sense that I can trace certain events that led to it happening, only I wasn't aware of what was going on. One night, I was getting ready for bed and was moving a chair, arranging everything so I wouldn't have to tidy my room the next day. I grabbed a chair to move it to the side, and at that moment, something clicked. I remember, the chair has nothing to do with it, but I remember that moment, I remember exactly what I was doing when it happened. I grabbed the chair, and something changed, something in the atmosphere had completely changed. I looked around, and all the objects looked super sharp, as if everything was in HD. It was as if there was no air in the room, not because I couldn't breathe, but because it felt empty. And it's not that it was empty, all the objects looked the same, they were there, but at the same time, it was as if there was nothing, as if the room was completely empty, as if nothing was real, but everything felt more real than ever because everything was, as I said, super sharp, super vivid. The colors were super vivid, it was as if the objects had light, but a literal light. It's not that I saw light coming out of the objects, but at that moment, I realized that all objects are light, everything is light, matter doesn't exist. The physical world as we know it doesn't exist. We have a very limited view of what reality is. Believing that everything is a physical world out there is completely wrong. It's what they teach us in school, it's what science explains to us, although today they're changing their view a bit. But I tell you, it's not necessary to study science to understand this. In fact, scientists, no matter how much they investigate, if they don't have a direct experience with reality, they won't be able to fully understand it. The only way to fully understand reality is through direct experience, and when I say direct experience, I don't mean touching something, I mean understanding, for example, that this pen is not outside of me. There is no physical, me, and a physical pen outside of my body. Limits don't exist, we are all an extension of everything else. This pen is an extension of my body, literally. I'm very literal with words. Yes, metaphysics is explained this way, and no matter how much one says, "What is he saying?" it sounds crazy, it's what I'm saying. I'm not using a play on words, I'm not being metaphorical, I'm being literal. The pen, the mate, the thermos, the whole couch, you, everything is an extension of everything else. And I remember that at that moment, what I felt was as if all the objects were inside my mind. And at the same time, they're inside your mind, but not your physical mind. Actually, that's wrong to say. It wouldn't be inside your mind, everything is inside your consciousness. Mind and consciousness are not the same. There is a very big difference. Your consciousness is your essence, your consciousness is your essence, it's who you truly are, it's your soul, it's your spirit. Your mind is something physical that you use in the third-dimensional realm, it's a tool that allows you to retain memories, do math, be able to speak. And your consciousness is what perceives everything that is happening inside your mind, because you think, but who perceives those thoughts? Your consciousness. Well, and what is consciousness? Your consciousness is your voice. Your consciousness is not inside your brain. I know it seems like it is because the eyes are very deceiving in the sense that since we see from here, we believe that consciousness is here, but consciousness is not here. It's not inside our body, but rather, our body is inside our consciousness. That's why every time a neurologist investigates and wants to find consciousness inside the brain, they get nowhere because it's not there. Consciousness, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have brain surgery, and you know that brain surgeries can be done while you're awake. Your head is open, your brain is exposed, and they give you a mirror, and you look at your brain in that mirror. Where is that brain? Inside your consciousness. Where are you perceiving it? Where are you seeing that physical brain, that round, sticky, pinkish grayish whitish thing? The brain has a weird color, it's not uniform. Where do you see that? You're there in the operating room, the brain is exposed, they give you a mirror, and you see it. Inside, where is that brain? Inside your consciousness. Consciousness is not inside the brain is inside consciousness. That consciousness that is perceiving the brain is not you. You are not inside a body. You are actually in another plane, not the three-dimensional plane, not the physical plane. I want to clarify that all of this is an illusion because physical matter is an illusion. It doesn't mean it's not real, it's real because it exists, we're seeing it, we're touching it, but it doesn't exist the way they taught us. You are in another plane, your higher self, your true self, your consciousness is in another plane, and it's projecting, imagining a physical reality. So imagine when you go to sleep, you lie down, you're dreaming, and you're projecting a movie, a dream, right? And within that dream, everything looks and feels very real, but it's not, but it feels real and looks real. You see colors, you see shapes, you see people, you see yourself, you have a body, you have a brain in that dream. But it's not tangible, it's not real. The moment I had my awakening, this sudden, spontaneous awakening where I saw everything super sharp in HD, super vivid, super colorful, everything, where I felt there was no air, air didn't exist, and that everything was actually a void, it was like breathing for the first time, it was like literally waking up. It feels like you wake up from a literal dream. I've never felt so alive as that time, and I would love to repeat it. It happened to me a couple more times, but it's not a state in which you can live 24/7 because you don't function. Because in that state, you don't need to eat, you don't need to do anything, you're in pure ecstasy because you're receiving reality for what it truly is, which is an illusion, and you understand the illusion. How is it possible that everything feels so physical and it's not? Because objects are not physical, they're not solid, nothing is solid. Solidity doesn't exist. For science, yes, but they're labels, they're ways of describing what we're experiencing. But it's not 100% accurate. It has a degree of truth because, yes, if we want to say that something that is like this, that I can't go through, is physical, it's true. Yes, something that I can't go through and that is rigid is physical. Well, for example, water has its physics, but I can go through it. Actually, it's not that we go through it, but the molecules separate, but well, let's say go through. It's true that it's like that, but because we decided to explain it that way, not because it really is that way. Not because this is really physical, rigid, and that's it, and there's nothing more to analyze. No, there's a lot to analyze. This is not physical and it's not outside of me. This is inside my consciousness, inside your consciousness. I'm inside your consciousness. The cell phone you have in your hand right now is inside your consciousness. It's not outside your body. Where are you seeing that cell phone or that computer or that TV? Where are you perceiving it? And maybe you tell me, out there, here in my hand or there on the furniture. Those are the dimensions you're perceiving, as if there's something here a few meters away and the other object, but where is that? Inside your consciousness. And as if consciousness were here inside, I have to stop doing that because I'm going to confuse you. Consciousness is actually above everything. It's not inside the body, but it's not here either. Everything is inside it, and everything is made of it too. Everything is made of consciousness. A scientist can tell you that you're made of atoms, quarks, strings, but what are those made of? And as time goes on, maybe they'll find smaller things inside quarks, inside strings, if they can zoom in more and more and more, which they actually know that there's empty space, that there's nothing, that things are actually made of nothing. Consciousness consciousness is not made of something physical, so they'll never be able to find it under a microscope or inside something. The only way to understand what consciousness is, to experience it, is like this. You are aware that you are that consciousness. Before finishing, I'm going to leave you a very good exercise so you realize who you are, what you are. When this happened to me, everything I'm telling you now, I realized in a second. It was like that. I saw everything and understood everything immediately, and that's what happens to everyone when they have these mystical experiences. They call them mystical experiences or spiritual experiences because they are of the spirit, of something beyond the physical body, beyond the mind. And since time doesn't exist, the understanding of what is happening is immediate. You don't need to sit down and read a book to understand reality. You don't need to go to university to study because this is not physical. You know it, you understand it because during that experience, you become everything. You realize that you are everything because everything is inside you. There are many phrases on the internet, and one that is very common out there is, the universe is inside you, but what does that mean? It means this, that I'm telling you, that everything is inside you, inside your consciousness. Those phrases are great, but they're incomplete. If no one explains them, they're not understood. The universe is inside me. What? Like the universe? Yes, the universe is inside you. Everything you can imagine is actually inside your consciousness. That's what it refers to. When I understood all this, and it was like breathing for the first time, I started laughing because I realized that Lucia doesn't exist. Lucia, this physical body, this mind, this person is an invention, just like you invent an avatar, me too, everyone, one doesn't exist in reality. It's a possibility. It's like the ego completely disappeared, and suddenly it was, well, who am I? Oh, well, I'm consciousness. That means I'm not my tastes, I'm not my name, I'm not my nationality, I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm not anything I think I am, I'm not anything I say I am. It's true, Lucia has her musical tastes, her favorite color, her favorite activities, her hobbies, she has what she likes to study, what she likes to do, yes, but that's not it. It's like that in this physical plane because it's necessary to communicate, to have a name, a personality. Imagine if one were changing personalities all the time, it's very difficult to relate to others, so there has to be an ego being the mask, the person, that includes your personality, your body, your mind, it has to be more or less stable to function in society. It can change at any moment, from one second to another, it can change. There are people who are very rigid and never change their whole life, they have the same musical taste, they dress the same way their whole life, they work in the same thing their whole life, people who are very flexible. And it's for this reason that when a person has a spiritual awakening, they often go into crisis because you realize that everything you've been doing is actually things you do because you were influenced by your parents or your friends or society or academic institutions, and not because it's really who you are. So suddenly all that is erased, and you're like, who am I? How do I present myself to the world? What do I really like? How am I really? I studied this because my parents made me believe that you have to study, that without a degree you're nobody, but now that I realize that's an unconscious belief that has no validity, that's not real, what do I do? Do I continue studying? Why do I study this and not that? Why do I dress how I dress? Why do I listen to this? It's like you go blank. You go completely blank, your ego dissolves, and you're like in front of an abyss, and you say, what do I do? You feel very lost, and it takes a long time to rebuild yourself. When you think you've managed to rebuild yourself, you realize that no, that construction you built again is actually loaded with unconscious beliefs from someone else. That is, they're unconscious to you, but they're beliefs from someone else that you absorbed somehow, and that's not really what you believe, it's not really what you want, nothing. It's like you're thrown into the void, you're thrown into the void. That's why many people, when they have a spiritual awakening, radically change an aspect of their life or several or all perhaps. They no longer have the same friends, they no longer have the same job, they no longer study the same thing, they no longer listen to the same music, they no longer dress the same way, they no longer have the same hobbies. Having a spiritual awakening is like having an existential crisis. It's difficult and very interesting at the same time, everything you discover. I'm like in an amusement park. There are many things that through the spiritual experiences I've had, I've been able to understand without anyone having to explain them to me, without having to read any book, without having to listen to any podcast. It's an immediate understanding, it's a second. I understood when I had the first awakening, the first mystical experience, as they say, not spiritual. I understood this, that I'm not inside my body, nobody is inside their body, that things are not outside but inside consciousness, that nothing is solid, that I am all things. When I say, I don't be in my physical self, I mean my consciousness, and that everything is made of that consciousness because everything is inside it. Think of the dream. When you go to dream, the mind is imagining a situation, it's seeing images. What is that dream made of? The content of that dream, the objects you see inside that dream, what are they made of? Mind, and they're inside the mind too. Actually, they're being projected in consciousness, but to explain that well, I have to make a separate video because it's complex. Reality has many layers, the matrix has many layers, so just so it's understood and I don't extend this video much more, let's say that dreams are made of mind. That's not so accurate, it's more accurate to say that they're made of consciousness, but I have to explain the two layers. You dream, you see an object, you see a table inside your dream, that dream is happening inside your mind, and that table is made of mind, it's not made of something physical, of something material, it's made of mind and it's being imagined by your mind and projected inside your mind. And speaking of projected, reality is as if it were a projection without a projector, it's kind of like a hologram, but we don't live inside a hologram. Don't believe those theories that say, and I know that nobody has the absolute truth, but I'll make a video about why we don't live inside a hologram. Saying that we live inside a hologram is good as a metaphor, it's a very good metaphor. There are several metaphors to explain reality, the hologram one is one, but we're not inside a hologram, the metaphor of the dream is another, but we're not dreaming. Reality is like a projection but without a physical projector. Think that there's the projector and the projector emits light and there's a blank space where you see the image. So in reality that's happening, we're seeing an image made of light, but there's no physical projector because all this, where is it coming from? A projector? No, reality is much more sophisticated than that. It's much more sophisticated and we don't need a projector to see things. It's like saying you need a projector to dream. You don't need a projector to dream because it's happening inside your mind. This is happening inside your consciousness, And consciousness is something like global, it's not located anywhere because consciousness is infinite. How is it infinite? I'll make another video explaining what infinity is, but infinity is obviously not a line with positive and negative numbers that never ends. That's not infinity. That's a partial way of representing infinity, but it's not infinity. It's not something that never ends. It's not something that has neither beginning nor end. That's a quality of infinity, that's true, but it's a very basic way of explaining what it is. The most complete way to explain what infinity is would be a form, it would be through metaphysics, which is what I'm explaining here now, it's what I'm talking about now. I'm talking about metaphysics, but it's super complex to explain and it's for a separate video. I'm going to leave you an exercise that may help you start to awaken. When you're doing something, for example, washing dishes or drawing, don't do it while you're driving. Don't do it while you're with some heavy machinery. No, 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 something that's not dangerous. So when you're washing dishes or when you're maybe reading a book, or when you're maybe reading a book is not the best idea because you won't be able to read, but when you're doing some simple task, imagine that you're in the corner of that room or that place where you are from. I'm here. Let's say you're meditating or that I'm writing here, writing, but I move my consciousness to a corner, to that corner, so I look at myself from the outside, literally. I'm not going to be seeing myself from the outside, I'm not going to see my back and my head, but I am going to feel myself in that corner, and when you feel that you're in that corner, that entity that is perceiving the body that is writing or washing dishes or drawing or meditating, that entity, that consciousness that is perceiving what that body is doing is you. That's your true self. You're not in here, you're out there, you're everywhere. I hope you liked this video. For everything I said today, I hope I haven't forgotten anything, but well, if I forgot, I'll add it in another video, but for everything I mentioned today, I'll make separate videos, I'll go into depth so it's better understood. Anyway, take these videos as something complimentary. If you want to awaken spiritually, it's not enough to just listen to a podcast or read a book. In my case, that happened to me, yes, it was spontaneous, but as I think about it, I actually at 21, I started listening to Alan Watts, who was a philosopher, guru, spiritual teacher, and I thought I was listening to someone talk about philosophy, and the guy doesn't talk about philosophy, he talks about metaphysics, but it seems like philosophy, and I listened to him for years and years and years, so it helped me, surely that had something to do with it, but it wasn't enough. I mean, I woke up at 29, 28, 29, not at 29, I think at 29, at 21 I started listening to Alan Watts, so it's not enough to just listen to someone or read something. Do the exercises that will speed up the process for awakening, but don't be impatient either, because the more you want to get there, sometimes the harder it is, it plays against you. So well, I hope this I told you today helps you, and I'll see you in the next one. A kiss. Mwah.